Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is KidNativeBloodyElbow.com, joined by Eddie Mercado for the sixth round of UFC 207. Not that Amanda Nunes needed 6 rounds to pummel Ronda Rousey right into retirement. Oh my effing God.
Wow. It didn't even take a minute. She didn't even
No,
last a minute. It was like 40 seconds or something like that. Like, oh my goodness.
it was
That was crazy.
completely brutal, one-sided ass beating. And then Amanda Nunes post-fight was yelling at the crowd, forget Ronda Rousey, forget Ronda Rousey. It was like, I mean, the Ronda Rousey era is over. Does anybody care about the Amanda Nunes era? Are the fans going to follow this?
I don't know. She'll definitely generate a lot of casual fans. The bandwagoners should shift from Ronda Rousey to Amanda Nunes. But where does I mean, is Ronda done? You think she's done?
Oh, Ronda's done, dude. And the bandwagoners are going to tune out. I guarantee it. They tuned out when Gina Carano got blitzed. They're going to tune out when Ronda Rousey got blitzed. It would take, if Holly Holm had managed to hold on to the title and demolished Ronda in a rematch, that would have been transferable. Holly Holm and maybe Misha Tate had a shot at this, but Amanda Nunes, no, she does not. But she looked great. I mean, it's what you're seeing is this rapid progression in women's MMA, and Ronda Rousey is very much like one of the old school men's MMA champions from the early days who had a limited skill set, had a great combination to finish the fight with the hip toss and the armbar, but at a certain point, people figure out your trick if that's all you got. And she didn't do what she would have had to do to grow, and it was just vicious.
Yeah, Ronda really, her striking did not look any better, I gotta say. I mean, it's just.
I mean, her taking fist to the face skills have definitely, she's had more practice, let's say. I mean, my God, that was just,
She just looks
you
so
know, I was,
different from what she used to look like. Like she's not even the same person out there. It's
no,
sad.
no.
It's kind of sad to be honest.
I was just before the show, I was thinking, I'm not going to say I'm sad for Ronda Rousey, but here we are. We're sad for Ronda Rousey. She had a great career. We
Yeah.
watched the storybook tale of this kid going from nothing, well, going from Olympic judo medalist, but that's really not that big in terms of celebrity, to becoming this enormous celebrity, having this incredible championship run, and then just falling off a cliff. I mean, it was brutal.
Yeah. She definitely reached icon status and has done more for MMA than since probably the Gracies, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
And it's just I just don't like seeing her go out like that. But I do like the fact that she didn't have to do this. She could have left after she won the title, and that would have been that. So for her to even come back and do this, I think took some balls on her part. So kudos to her. And if it is her last fight, then I definitely appreciate everything she's done for the sport because she put it on the map.
Yeah. Women's MMA. I mean, women's MMA had had some wins before. Gina Carano, I would say, really put it on the map, but Ronda took it to that
Mm,
next level, to Main Street, made it an American sport in a way that Gina Carano just teased it, that it could potentially be a big time American sport. And Ronda had a good run in the spotlight. I mean, the narrative they're trying to push, it seems like, is the Ronda was a great champion, but she got distracted by the high altitude, lack of oxygen, bright lights at the top. But I think she had a great run. I mean, not many people could have done what she did athletically or psychologically, to overcome the pressures that come with fame as long as she did, especially with as limited a skill set as she had. But let's talk about the new bantamweight men's champion, Cody Garbrandt.
man, that was exciting.
This
That
was
was
a
so.
great fight. But, I didn't give the quick official results. Amanda Nunes beat Ronda Rousey, TKO punches, 48 seconds of the first round. But now Cody Garbrandt won a unanimous decision, 48-46, 48-47, 48-46 over Dominic Cruz. I've hated Dominic Cruz for years. I've not been a fan of his fighting style. I like him just fine in the booth and as a commentator and a person, personality, but I've never liked his fighting style. And finally, he wins me over to root for him with his excellent, incredible championship level shit talking. He demolished Cody Garbrandt in interview after interview, and we just saw that talk is not fight.
It's true. And it's beyond that, though. I mean, the miles on Cruz is obviously catching up to him. This is the first time that Dominic Cruz has ever looked slow to me. Like, he looked slow and old out there.
He did from the moment he appeared with the salt and pepper on the side and the dark beard. I was like, ooh, Dom looking old. And Cody looked slick. I mean, it did not take him long at all to just shut down Dominic's game, which really, the theory is always that somebody who has what they call classic striking style is going to beat somebody who's got an eccentric or an unorthodox striking style like Cruz, where you're dancing around a lot and doing a lot of inefficient moves. But Cruz has always been fast enough and conditioned enough to get away with it and turn that unusual fighting style into a real asset. Garbrandt just wasn't having it. And he was just realizing, look, the guy's got to come in to hit me, and I'm going to light him up when he does. And, I mean, it was some next-level shit. The sprawl game was tight, bouncing back up. He just shut down Dominic Cruz 6 ways to Sunday. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, we saw a lot from Garbrandt. He proved a lot. We saw him eat a big punch and recover.
Several. Cruz cracked him at least 4 times.
Yeah, we saw him go 5 rounds. You know, a lot of people were counting him out thinking, hey, if he hits championship rounds, he's not going to have the gas tank. But nah, he looked just as sharp in the 5th as he did in the 1st.
And was it the 4th round when he did the push-up in Dominic's face? He drops to the ground, does a push-up, bounces back up before Cruz can do anything about it. I mean, they showed some respect after the fight, but in the cage, Garbrandt showed Cruz no respect. He shut down the shit-talking game. I mean, Cruz is so used to having the psychological and tactical edge, and he just did not have it. And I really think you're right that the miles on Dominic Cruz's body are a huge factor. This is a guy who spent years on the bench with injuries and had multiple surgeries to key joints time and time again. I mean, there's just no way a human being can go through what Dominic Cruz has put his body through and not show some signs of it. And Father Time caught up with him tonight in the form of Cody Garbrandt. And what a merciless way to point out, dude, you're aging.
Yeah, and it literally pointing. He was pointing to where he wanted to fight. Like, he kept pointing at the center of the cage and like, come on, let's do this. Let's do this. And he looked so comfortable out there. I could not believe his composure. That might be the biggest takeaway. I mean, he looked like he belonged there, like he was the champion.
It was apparent very quickly that Cruz's pre-fight talk, which clearly rattled Garbrandt. I mean, you know, when he's bursting out of the interviews trying to attack Cruz, he's clearly been rattled, but he didn't bring it into the cage with him tonight. He left all that bullshit behind in the locker room and walked into that cage cool, calm, and collected and just dismantled Dominic Cruz. I mean, Cruz was working this thing of ducking at fainting ducks, which I've never really seen anybody do. And I think the deal is that Cruz has been doing that all along. He's been doing it so fast. You're like, why is this jackknife hopping around like that? And you didn't realize what he was doing was feinting these unconventional approaches so he'd see how you'd react when he came in that way. And Garbrandt just made it clear the doors are closed, fool.
Yeah, Garbrandt was just way too mobile, way too fast, and way too responsive with his counters. His counters are laser strikes. I mean, Cruz was just not fast enough to come in and out. It just won't work for that style.
No,
and I think Garbrandt kind of redeemed himself with his lack of shit talking before the fight, with his post-fight comment for TJ Dillashaw.
Yes.
He's like, TJ Dillashaw, come try me, motherfucker. I was like, oh, shit. Like,
that was nice. And that brings us to the 3rd fight on the card, bantamweight TJ Dillashaw versus John Lineker in what appears to be a #1 contender match. Dillashaw shut down Lineker, unanimous decision, 30-26 on all 3 cards. I cannot recall a #1 contender fight coming out 30-26 on all 3 cards ever.
Yeah, that was wild. I actually picked Lineker in that fight. I thought he was going to catch TJ trying to throw some volume, but Dillashaw looked dominant, and he looks hungry. And He should definitely get the title shot next, I believe.
Yes, but what do you think of his chances against Cody Garbrandt?
Mm. See, I think TJ is faster than Dominic Cruz.
Well,
And
this is true. The Cruz we saw tonight was not as fast as the Dominic Cruz of old.
and I think the way that TJ Dillashaw was changing levels tonight was phenomenal. I mean, he gets you thinking striking, and then out of nowhere, he's gonna blast in on you and take you down. So
But
I
you
think
saw Cruz come in and with a really sweet level change on Garbrandt early in the fight that Garbrandt immediately sprawled and reversed. I mean,
yes, but that was nowhere to be found anywhere else throughout that fight. Whereas TJ Dillashaw will be able to do that in the fifth round, or at least he'll pose that threat, I think. But I don't know. I really like the punching of Garbrandt. Like I like the
yeah,
confidence in his hands. I like
and
his
the straight shot is a fast, clean, powerful shot that you can cock and reload quickly. I don't know. I was much higher on Dillashaw before his fight with Dominic Cruz, and I don't know. I think there was a coaching setup he had on his rise to the title that he changed something, and I don't think he's grown as fast as he was. I mean, maybe he grew as much as he could, but I don't know. I like Garbrandt heavy in a fight with Dillashaw, but I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I think they both looked sharp as shit tonight.
Yeah, they definitely both made statements, and they both called each other out. So it's academic at this point.
Hopefully, we'll see how WME IMG feels about that sort of thing. And then in the second fight on the pay-per-view card, welterweight Don Kyung Stun Gun Kim, not to be confused with the other Don Kyung Kim in the UFC, beats Tarek Saffiedine, split decision, 27-30, 29-28, 29-28. This is a fight Joe Rogan had for Tarek Saffiedine. I thought Kim did enough to win it.
Yeah, I think just based off of pure aggression and coming forward. He was dictating a little more what was going on with that forward pressure. So I gave it to him on that. But it was definitely a snoozer in my opinion. Definitely a snoozer.
It was probably the weakest fight in the card. I was impressed with the way Tarek Saffiedine fought Kim in the clinch. He actually swept him a couple times, which
Yeah, the trips. Those
he
were
was
nice.
pulling some trips on a judo guy, which is not something you expect to see. But I think it's one of the classic scenarios where kickboxer trains for judo guy. His judo is really sharp going into that fight. Judo guy trains for kickboxer. Judo's like the last thing on his mind. So Kim has been working a lot of elements of his game, but not his judo so much. And Saffiedine took advantage of it, but it didn't matter because Kim managed to shut him down. And I scored it for Kim too, mainly on aggression, but also I thought he scored on the feet.
Yeah, he was tagging him, but there was really nothing significant landed from either guy throughout the entire thing.
Yeah, that was a
Wasn't
frustrating thing.
anything of substance. I had people falling asleep. Like it was just terrible fight. I can't believe it was even on the pay-per-view, to be honest.
Well, I mean, they're spreading the cards thin. The card that they revealed for UFC 208 is looking feeble. Holly Holm and the headliner, but Travis Brown and Derek Lewis as the co-main event. I mean,
that's gonna be fun, though. That's gonna be fun.
It's not $59.95 worth of fun, dude. I mean, it'd be fine on Fox Sports 1 as a third on the bill, but co-main on a pay-per-view, give me a break. All right. In the Fox Sports 1 headliner, we had Neil Magny beat Johnny Hendricks in a catchweight fight because Hendricks missed weight by an enormous amount. Oh, I skipped the Ray Borg, Louis Smolka fight, the flyweight fight, catchweight fight that opened up the pay-per-view card, and Ray Borg just shut down Louis Smolka. Unanimous decision, 30-27, 30-26, 30-26. Just put on a grappling clinic and shut down Smolka completely, which is very impressive because Smolka is tough.
Yeah, and it's hard to hold people down at 125. That's just one of those divisions where guys just pop right back up. So if you got a guy that can actually hold you down and control you, I mean, and I was high on Ray Borg when he first came along.
Everybody was high on him.
Pretty solid prospect, and then he just seemed to not really develop on the feet.
It's hard, yeah. I think at flyweight it's especially hard because everybody's so fast, and I just always think that submission grapplers have the lowest ceiling of any MMA, any stylist that comes into MMA. I mean, if you're starting from a striking standpoint or a wrestling standpoint, I think you have a much higher ceiling as a rule than if you start as a submission guy, just because guys' submission defense are so good at the highest levels. But Borg dominated position all the way, It's too bad he missed weight by a considerable amount. I mean, 129.5 pounds at flyweight. That is a huge percentage of your body weight to miss weight by. So that doesn't bode well. I mean, John Lineker's a guy who tried to compete at flyweight and just could not make the weight. We saw him fighting at bantamweight tonight. Is Borg's future at bantamweight?
I think they're definitely going to give him another chance, but this is not the first time he's struggled to make weight. So if the trend continues, I mean, they're going to do him like they did Gastelum and make him fight, like force him to actually fight at a higher weight class, at least till he, can take it seriously or accept the fact that he's just too big.
Yeah. It's the weight. Everything has gotten harder with the weight cuts with these early weigh-ins and the change in the drug testing regimen. It's a whole new ballgame. And speaking of a whole new ballgame, Neil Magny beats Johnny Hendricks, unanimous decision, 29-28 on all 3 cards. Hendricks missed weight by 3.5 pounds. He didn't look terrible in this fight, though. I mean, he actually fought a respectable fight. This is not the ghost of himself, Johnny Hendricks, a lot of people that we've been seeing and that people were expecting after the weight miss. This was just a Johnny Hendricks who got burned because the religion of lay and pray. I mean, it seems like MMA judges have lost their religion. Like, what the hell?
I think it's just people are more educated. And the bottom line, this is a fight. Who's closer to finishing the fight? And you have to give that to Magny. He was the guy. He finished rounds 1 and 2 with Johnny Hendricks in a triangle, smashing down elbows.
It's true. Very
that's
dominant.
Closer to finishing the fight than Johnny Hendricks ever did come. Yeah, Johnny got some awesome takedowns, but he didn't do anything with them except control.
He held the guy down for most of the round. Isn't that enough?
Not in 2016.
Trump won the election, dude. You can't give me this educated judges thing, man. That sounds like elitism to me.
Definitely, we definitely had some education issues in our first fight, but we'll talk about that later.
Yes, we'll get to it. And then in the second to last fight on the Fox Sports 1 portion of the card, middleweight Antonio Carlos Jr. beat Marvin Vettori, unanimous decision. Thoughts on that one? There was some decent grappling in that one. Vettori actually impressed me with a close submission attempt early on.
Yeah, I think both of their stocks went up in this one. No one expected Vettori to be able to hang in the grappling department, and he held his own and then some. I think he definitely got the better of quite a few exchanges. And is Shoeface not the best nickname in MMA?
That is a pretty sweet nickname. I don't know about best in MMA, but I liked it. It made a big impression. But what did Carlos Jr. do to win the fight?
Exactly. What did he do? I think he maybe had some more control time. I don't know. That was a tough one to score for me. I think it was weird. There was a couple eye pokes like early on. There were like 3 eye pokes within 2 minutes, and that kind of set the tone of it.
Yeah, it's just
it was just a real testy kind of back and forth, jock and forth position situation, and Carlos, I guess, came out on the better end of that. But I don't know. I don't think it was super impressive, but.
Like I had it for Vettori. I mean, it is what it is, but I think both guys looked pretty sharp. And
Vettori definitely got that second round, but the first and thirds were arguable. And when like in a fight like that, I can't even be mad with the outcome. It
was a good fight. Yeah, I'm not sweating it. But then we had welterweight Alex Garcia finally delivering on some of the hype with a first round 3 minutes 34-second KO over Mike Pyle. Pyle's day is probably done, but that doesn't change the fact that counter punch Garcia landed when Pyle went in for the low kick. Just a classic MMA situation. You go in for the low kick without setting it up, you are wide open for the big right hand coming across, and Garcia delivered it perfectly. And the convulsions that Pyle went into were straight up old school Tank Abbott style, just scary.
Yeah, it was that's the perfect word, scary. And I'm a huge Mike Pyle fan. I always have been.
He's had some great moments.
But I'm definitely okay if he walks away from the sport.
He has done plenty for cage fighting, I have to say. And at this point, the head trauma he's got to be taken is not worth it. Then we had welterweight Nico Price submit Brandon Thatch in the Fox Sports 1 opener, arm triangle choke, 4 minutes, 30 seconds of the first round. Price looked impressive as hell.
Yeah, he did. He looked aggressive. He looked hungry, and it looked like he knew what his game plan was and went right for it and didn't give up on it and went 100% for it. And I think if he wouldn't have got the submission, that second round might have looked a little different, but he got it done.
He did get it done. And I think that whoever booked this fight knew what they were doing, putting Thatch in, who's been struggling against a UFC newcomer, kind of odd matchmaking, and Price justified it. Then in the opener, Alex Oliveira and Tim Means at welterweight, a fucked up no contest illegal knees. It was ruled accidental illegal knee, which it wasn't an illegal knee. Means was Oliveira was completely down on one knee, but had no hands on the ground. Only 1 point of contact with the ground, but he was down. One knee down is down. And yet, they had Mark Ratner and Joe Rogan coming on the screen telling us that wasn't illegal because he only had 1 point down. And they're completely misinterpreting the rule, which is if you're standing and try to put one hand on the ground, you're not down. But nobody said nothing about a knee on the ground. That is down. And so it was when you had Mark Ratner openly saying Dan Miragliotta doesn't know the rules, when Miragliotta actually for once knows the rules.
Miragliotta was in the right. The craziest part for me was this is Goldie's final show. This was his moment to say, the knee is down. He's down. That's illegal. Like, this was Goldie's moment to shine. I feel he kind of dropped the ball on that.
After 20 years of not learning the basics of the sport, there's no way he's gonna break the tide and do that. But let's talk about Ronda Rousey. This was her night, and it was not her night. I mean, they marketed this whole card around the return of Ronda Rousey, and she gets annihilated like that. And you've got to think that leaves a bad taste in the mouth of a lot of casual fans who weren't told to care about anything except Ronda Rousey's return. And Ronda Rousey's return was definitely anticlimactic if you're a Ronda Rousey fan. And if you're an Amanda Nunes fan, it was some brutal, beautiful violence. But that's not what Ronda Rousey fans came to see.
No, it honestly almost looked like an amateur out there. She didn't look like she belonged in there at all.
No, she did not. I mean, she was scared. She was slow. And she had nothing once she started getting cracked. And those shots were hard shots. I mean, she went in once to try to get the hip toss going and just got shut down. And then from there, it was all right hands from Nunes.
Credit to Nunes. She's Queen Bee. She successfully defended the title for the first time since Ronda lost it. She, I don't know. I'm not sure how many more Amanda Nunes fans are there now?
Yeah, I do not have a feel for that at all. It'll be very interesting to see the response. The interest levels were high. Ronda Rousey has always done a lot more web traffic than she's done pay-per-view sales. Like in pay-per-view sales, Conor McGregor just smacks her around. But when it comes to web traffic and media interest, Rousey just beats the shit out of anybody in the game and has for several years. And I think it's because a lot of her fans are just not that interested in popping up $60 for a pay-per-view, but they're real interested in coming to BloodyElbow.com and checking out and seeing how she's doing. And so it's great for the MMA media, but and it's great for the UFC too. I mean, she gets plenty of pay-per-views. She gets tons of media attention. And one of the few positive press stories they've had in years has been the rise of Ronda Rousey and the rise of women's MMA. Just because of the politics of the moment. It's hard to criticize women's MMA in the way that you criticize men's MMA. But everything else with the unions, the lawsuits, the specter of CTE, all the changes with PEDs and all the drug test failures and all the injuries and suspensions and fights they can't put together, they've had some rough times at the UFC, and Ronda Rousey's been a shining beacon, really, ever since she took the women's title and came into the UFC. I mean, Dana White famously said, we'll never have women in the UFC. For years, that was his stance, and Ronda Rousey pretty much single-handedly broke that barrier and then was a huge success. I mean, going from something that Dana White was completely skeptical of to being the UFC's biggest draw, and Rousey arguably was in 2014, if not 2015, before the rise of Conor McGregor. She was hands down the biggest thing going for a while and just had a great run. I mean, she won the UFC title in February of 2013, and until August of 2015, or actually November 2015, just reigned over the division and was the biggest star in the UFC. And I mean, the names and the finishes. I mean, you got Betch Kahea, knockout, UFC 190. Kat Zingano, submission, straight armbar, UFC 184. Alexis Davis, KO, UFC 175, 16 seconds, 14 seconds, 34 seconds. I mean, beats Sarah McMahon, TKO, knees the body, minute 6 seconds. Miesha Tate's armbar, 58 seconds. Liz Carmouche, 449, submission armbar, submission armbar, submission armbar. I mean, this woman put some stats on the board. I mean, she just annihilated people when she was at her peak, and that's what people really came to expect. And it's kind of ironic that that's how she went out, other than one fight against Miesha Tate that went deep into the third round or beginning of the third round, and her loss to Holly Holm in the second round. I mean, Ronda Rousey was a one-round woman. They say John Lennon was a one-take rock and roller, and Ronda Rousey was a one-round fighter. I mean, her best work was in the first minute of the first round, and the worst thing that happened to her to potentially end her career, 48 seconds of the first round. I mean, live by the sword, die by the sword. The quick finish was good to Ronda for a long time, and then it wasn't.
Yeah, what a story, right? Like, what a story. I can't help but feel sad though. Just
it's over. I mean,
go out like just she fell off so hard.
Yep.
Like she has not looked the same since that Betch fight.
No, she has not. And Holly Holm really exposed the limitations in her game and clearly rattled Ronda in her head. I mean, there was always a wound up feeling about Ronda Rousey, that she was an incredibly intense person, was obvious. But that's something that I really feel like the best analog, and people are not going to like this, but I think the best psychological analog for Rousey was Fedor Emelianenko, the longtime king of men's heavyweight division in Pride, when Pride was the biggest thing going. And once Fedor lost, he never really recovered. I mean, he lost that calm and iciness. Same thing for Rousey. She sort of had this animal aggression, this incredible nervous energy that would explode all over her opponents. And once she no longer had that unshakable self-confidence, all that nervous energy seemed to be directed within. And I think Ronda Rousey beat herself long before she got in the cage with Nunes.
That could very well be. But sticking with the Fedor theme, Fedor took some time off, but he's fighting again.
Fedor's back, but Fedor's not back. I mean, you know, like
people will pay to watch him fight. People will
true
to watch him fight, and people will definitely pay to watch Ronda fight again. But honestly, this makes me not even want to see her fight Cyborg anymore.
No, I would not want to see that. And with Cyborg's drug test failure this other week, you know, the ship's passed, man. I feel bad for Cyborg Chris Giustiano, because she missed her chance. She was sort of in the hunt for several years to be the biggest fight for Ronda Rousey, and it never came together. A lot of it was due to hostility from the UFC and Dana White, and a lot of it was self-inflicted. I mean, nobody forced Chris Cyborg to hire Tito Ortiz as her manager. Nobody forced her to ask to be released from a UFC contract. Nobody asked her to undergo, well, they pressured her to lose weight and fight at 135. But I really am just, it's hard for me to accept that she could not have gone on a sustained diet and really lost the weight. It seemed like she tried to weight cut her way down from 170 to 135 and nearly killed herself in the offing. And I think she got some bad nutritionist advice. But anyway, you know, that's neither here nor there. That ship has sailed. And for Holly Holm, too, she is the one who beat Rousey when Rousey was at the top of the game, and then immediately loses to Miesha Tate, and then loses again. And, you know, that moment that Holly Holm was the one who had the opportunity to follow Rousey as a mainstream celebrity. And I think when she lost, that was that. When Miesha Tate lost, the women's bantamweight division just fell off the table. I mean, in terms of competition, it's better than ever. But in terms of celebrity appeal, it's hurting. And celebrity appeal, that's what WME IMG is all about. That's what made the UFC a $4 billion sport. And, you know, those days are gone. And with Conor McGregor taking 10 months off, it's going to be a very interesting 2017 for the UFC. And starting out with UFC 208, it is not looking good. So Eddie Mercado. That's our show. Thanks very much. What's your Twitter handle? It's at the Eddie Mercado. Ha!
Yes,
I knew
sir.
it. And I'm at Kid Nate. Read us on bloodyelbow.com. Subscribe to MMANation.com on YouTube. Subscribe to MMA Nation on iTunes. Get the audio without the ugly. And I believe that's all my plugs. Eugene Robinson will have Knuckle Up Sunday night. And then we have No Fight next week. So we'll have If I Did It and MMA Depressed Us and all the usual shows. And then the week after that, what's next? Penn versus Rodriguez?
Yeah, Rodriguez and Penn, they're about to go at it. If Penn shows up.
Yes. Yeah, that should be interesting.
That's
and
UFC
we'll have all
Phoenix, I believe.
And we'll have all the pre-fight, care, don't care, MMA vivisection and all that. So thanks, Eddie, and adios, MMA aficionados. We'll see you next time.